Welcome back to The Basement. I'm Steve Lewis. This week we wind up July, August, and September of 1975 with news, television, and the Beach Boys, and in particular a look at the new television season, which premieres in September. Let's get started with a look at some notable news. On July 17th, an American Apollo spacecraft and a Soviet Soyuz spacecraft rendezvous in space for the first international space mission. After docking, the three astronauts and two cosmonauts exchange greetings and gifts, visit each other's ships, share meals, converse in each other's languages, and conduct joint scientific experiments. On July 30th, controversial labor union leader James R. Jimmy Hoffa disappears in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. Despite an extensive investigation and many tips and rumors and deathbed statements over the years, the disappearance remains officially unsolved. On September 5th in Sacramento, California, former Manson family member Lynette Squeaky Fromm attempts to assassinate President Ford. Her gun misfires and she is immediately apprehended. Ford is unharmed. 17 days later, on September 22nd in San Francisco, California, Sarah Jane Moore attempts to assassinate President Ford. She fires two shots, both of which miss, and is immediately apprehended. One bystander is injured. Ford is unharmed. On September 18th, fugitive Patricia Hearst, with three others, is apprehended by the FBI in San Francisco 17 months after being kidnapped and subsequently joining her captors, the SLA, on a crime spree in California. And now let's look at some notable events in television. On Monday, September 1st, Gunsmoke goes off the air after 20 years. It's pretty much the last Western on television, marking the end of a genre that, in the late 50s and early 60s, had been one of the most popular on TV. A week later, the three networks begin rolling out their new fall television schedules. On Monday, September 8th, following the Mary Tyler Moore spinoff Rhoda, comes a new spinoff from the show, Phyllis, starring Cloris Leachman. Mary's former landlady and neighbor, Phyllis, who is recently widowed from her never-seen husband, Lars, moves with her daughter, Bess, from Minneapolis to live with her eccentric in-laws in San Francisco. The show will be successful in the short run, lasting for 2 seasons. As we discussed when we talked about 1974, during the 1974-75 season, ABC's Happy Days had dropped from 16th to 34th in the ratings, mainly due to its being on opposite CBS's blockbuster Good Times with its breakout character JJ, played by Jimmy Walker. On the season 3 premiere of Happy Days on Tuesday, September 9th, Fonzie moves into an apartment over the Cunningham family's garage. This will allow their breakout character to get involved in almost any plot the writers can devise and put Fonzie front and center on the show. Also beginning this season, Happy Days is no longer a single camera shoot with a laugh track. Instead, like Good Times and the other Norman Lear comedies, it's a 3-camera shoot with a live audience. The strategy will work. Happy Days will bounce back to number 11 for the 1975-76 season and will go to number 1 the season after that. Following the season premiere of Happy Days at 8:30 on ABC comes a brand new sitcom, Welcome Back, Kotter. Kotter has returned to his old high school in Brooklyn as a teacher, where he is assigned to teach the chronic underachievers known as the Sweat Hogs. Kotter is played by Gabriel Kaplan, whose act the series is roughly based on. His 1974 comedy album, Holes and Mellow Rolls, is reissued in 1975 with a new cover tying it into the series. Mr. Kotter's wife, Julie, is Marcia Strassman. High school principal, Mr. Woodman, is played by John Sylvester White. The leading Sweat Hogs are Robert Hedges as Juan Epstein, Lawrence Hilton Jacobs as Freddie Boom Boom Washington, Ron Palillo as Arnold Horseshack, and as Vinnie Barbarino, John Travolta, who will become a giant teen heartthrob and the series' breakout star. The show's bouncy theme song is written and performed by former Lovin' Spoonful frontman John Sebastian. Premiering that night over on CBS right after Welcome Back, Kotter is Switch. It stars Eddie Albert as Frank McBride, a former police officer, and Robert Wagner as Pete Ryan, an ex-con, who have joined forces as private investigators who specialize in turning the tables on con men and criminals. It'll be a moderate hit, running for 3 seasons until September 1978. On Wednesday, September 10th, comes Starsky and Hutch, starring Paul Michael Glazier and David Soul in the title roles as Southern California police detectives who don't play by the rules. They're forever being read the riot act by their superior, Captain Doby, played by Bernie Hamilton, who was tough but fair-minded. And they're always getting the word on the street from jive-talking informant Huggy Bear, played by Antonio Fargas. The show is played as much for laughs as it is for drama. It's on ABC at 10 p.m. following the returning Beretta. Starsky and Hutch will be a major hit for ABC and run until 1979. On Saturday, September 13th, comes Doc, a new sitcom from MTM Productions starring Bernard Hughes as New York general practitioner Joe Bogert. It's given a prime position in the powerhouse CBS Saturday night lineup between The Jeffersons and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Seemingly, CBS has a lot of faith in it, and of course, MTM Productions, responsible for Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, and Rhoda, has a good track record. Even with a great time slot, Doc will draw mediocre ratings at best. After the first season in the fall of 1976, it'll be retooled with a completely different support cast before CBS finally pulls the plug on it on October 30th, 1976, just a few weeks into its second season. Following the premiere of Doc, The Mary Tyler Moore Show begins its 6th season, with both of her wacky neighbors, Rhoda and Phyllis, spun off into their own series. The show now concentrates exclusively on Mary's work life at WJM TV News. Featured cast member Georgette, played by Georgia Engel, had been introduced 2 seasons earlier as a friend of Mary's neighbor, Rhoda. She had been kept in the action by having her date WJM anchorman Ted Baxter, whom she'll marry early in the new season. At the end of the season, Robbie Rist, the former cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch, will be added as an occasional character, Ted and Georgette's adopted son, David. A year earlier, Betty White had been added as WJM TV's happy homemaker, Sue Ann Nivens, beefing up the cast at Mary's workplace. Also, with Mary's landlady, Phyllis, having moved to San Francisco, Mary moves into a new apartment in a modern high-rise. A week later, on Saturday, September 20th, with CBS having moved All in the Family to Monday nights, ABC seizes on a potential opening. Kicking off ABC's new Saturday night lineup is Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. The idea of making bellicose ABC sportscaster Howard Cosell the host of a variety show seemed like a bizarre long shot. The executive producer is Roone Arledge, who, like Cosell, is a veteran of ABC sports with no experience in comedy variety. It's clearly hoped that, against all odds, this will become the new Ed Sullivan Show. Along those lines, tonight's premiere features the much-anticipated U.S. debut of Scottish teen idols, the Bay City Rollers. Cosell introduces them as the next British phenomenon, clearly trying to draw parallels to Sullivan's introduction of the Beatles in 1964. Appropriately, the Bay City Rollers perform their single, Saturday Night. As an entertainment host, Cosell is possibly even worse than expected. Saturday Night Live will last for a total of 18 episodes, ending on January 17, 1976. Coincidentally, NBC is also premiering a late-night show this fall that it plans to call Saturday Night Live. With the Cosell show on ABC, it's forced, at least initially, to call it NBC's Saturday Night. We'll talk more about it when we come to the fourth quarter. Of course, there are plenty of other flops in the fall of 1975, including Swiss Family Robinson, Barbary Coast, When Things Were Rotten, On the Rocks, Mobile One and Matt Helm on ABC, Three for the Road, Bronk, Joe and Sons, Beacon Hill, Kate McShane and Big Eddie on CBS, and The Family Holvac, The Invisible Man, Joe Forrester, Doctor's Hospital, The Montefuscos, Faye, Ellery Queen, and Medical Story on NBC. Premiering in syndication on Saturday, September 21st is Space 1999. Very unusually for the mid-70s, it's a science fiction series. It stars Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, married in real life, and among other things, the former stars of Mission Impossible. The series' executive producer is Jerry Anderson, experienced in working with miniatures from earlier series Fireball XL5 and Thunderbirds. Stylistically, it looks like a Supermarionation version of 2001: A Space Odyssey. 2 seasons will be produced. There are few notable new kid shows on Saturday morning in 1975. To cut costs, many of the returning series consist entirely of reruns from prior years, and for most of the new series, only 13 to 16 episodes are produced, aired in the fall, and then rerun for the remainder of the season. With Sid and Marty Krofft's Land of the Lost having been a big hit last year, many of the new series are live action. Sid and Marty Krofft's comic live action The Lost Saucer stars Ruth Buzzy and Jim Nabors. Its 16 total episodes will air before year end. ABC will keep it on the air in perpetual reruns until December 1976. The Kroffts produced another comic live-action science fiction show this season, this one for CBS. Far Out Space Nuts stars Chuck McCann as Barney and the former Gilligan, Bob Denver, as Junior. Its 15 total episodes will air before year end and be rerun for the remainder of its 1 season on the air. Another live-action CBS comedy this year is The Ghostbusters, with former F Troop stars Forrest Tucker and Larry Storch reunited as bumbling detectives who investigate spooky occurrences. 15 episodes are created for its 1 season. Its biggest claim to fame will come 8.5 years later, when the series' title is used for an unrelated hit movie. Shazam had been a hit for CBS last year. In 1975, they bring Shazam back with a new actor in the lead role as part of the new Shazam ISIS Hour. ISIS is essentially just a female version of Shazam who, like her male counterpart, uses her superpowers to solve some pretty intensity-free dilemmas. NBC has Return to the Planet of the Apes. A live-action primetime series had failed a year earlier on CBS. Now the Apes franchise returns in animated form. The animation is noticeably cheap and the stories poorly thought out. Only 13 episodes will be produced, all of which will air before December. NBC will rerun those 13 episodes to fill out its 1-season run. And what were the Beach Boys up to in the third quarter of '75? On January 28th, Reprise reissues Wouldn't It Be Nice as a single, with Caroline No on the B-side. Both tracks are from the new Good Vibrations collection. The choice of Wouldn't It Be Nice is probably influenced by the song being featured in the hit movie Shampoo. The single won't chart. On August 30th, the Good Vibrations collection begins the first of 2 weeks at its number 25 chart peak. Kind of amazingly, last year's Endless Summer compilation, which had briefly fallen out of the top 200 over the winter, has been climbing back up the chart over the spring and summer. On August 30th, when the Good Vibrations collection hits number 25, Endless Summer is all the way back up at number 20, where it too will stay for 2 weeks. Extremely worried by Brian's spiraling mental and physical decline, Marilyn Wilson engages highly respected psychologist Dr. Eugene Landy to treat him round the clock beginning in September. Initial results are encouraging. With the Beachago tour having wrapped on July 6th, the Beach Boys return to the road late in July with numerous stops across North America for the remainder of the year. And that'll bring us to the end of the summer of 1975. Next week, we'll begin wrapping things up with a look at a very eventful quarter in music in October, November, and December. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, I look forward to your comments. Please hit like if you don't mind, subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching. Have a great week. Bye.